Hello, listeners. Thanks for joining another episode of the Skin I'm In podcast. I'm your host, Chanel, and this is a place where women can tune in to gain peace through clarity, purpose through inspiration, and the permission to be themselves through the stories of other women. If you're enjoying these episodes so far, click the like, share, and subscribe button so that more women like you can be positively impacted by the stories in this podcast. My guest today is someone who I have been inspired by for the last couple of years. I've been quietly watching her post on LinkedIn and thinking, I bet this woman has a story to tell. She's the visionary CEO and founder of HR Star, a company that was born out of a need to do HR differently. HR Star is leading a revolution in how founders prioritize and nurture their teams and is committed to reshaping the narrative and removing the guilt often associated with being a CEO burdened by doing it all in their business. My guest is often seen sharing tools, support, and resources on her LinkedIn, including a free newsletter about how to run a people-first business. Outside of her busy schedule, my guest enjoys Pilates and walks with her dog. She volunteers her time to career and school events. She is a wife. She is a mother of 3 teenage boys. She is Kelly Tucker. Welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So you're the owner of a successful business, you're a mother, you're a wife. How in the world do you prioritize your time with such a busy schedule?
Wow, what a question. It's not easy, definitely. I love what I do, so I think that massively helps. Years ago have been in jobs where it's that Sunday night dread where you don't want to go into work. It's a struggle. And I don't have any of that. Yes, it's tough running a business and having 3 children and being a wife, etc., and juggling all of those things. But I love what I do. So I think that definitely makes it easier. Finding time for me can be hard. You mentioned there in the intro about my Pilates. That's literally something I started in the last couple of months. For a long time, I was like, I want to try reformer Pilates. I want to have time to do that. And in the end, I was like, do you know what? I've just got to commit to doing it once a week and make sure I go. And I've done that for the last 8 weeks. And yeah, there's times when I think, I won't go because I've got too many other things to do. But I go, and I go because over the years, I've been doing HR Star now for 9 years. I've really realized that it's such a knock-on effect if I don't make that time for me. So if I don't go and exercise, then I don't make good choices in terms of eating well. Then that makes me feel really rubbish, and then I don't sleep well, and then I don't do my best work. So it's really important to try and find that time, but it's definitely not easy.
Yeah. And we've talked off podcast about your experiences working in HR within a company. And you just touched on that just now when you started the company and, how it shaped your vision of doing things differently when you went on your own. What do you think the catalyst was to finally say, bugger this, the industry needs a change and I'm going to work out how to shake things up?
Yeah, I think, in terms of, giving you a bit of a backstory, I didn't choose a career in HR. I kind of fell into it, and I'm sure lots of people will say the same. I was a PA for a senior leadership team in a local company after I think that was my third job. And then I took voluntary redundancy there and took some time out. I went and spent some time in the Gambia with a friend. And then after a while, so when I was living at home, so I was 21, 22 then. And my dad was very much, Kelly, you need to go and find a job. And he was very sort of old fashioned in his views, bless him. And he's like, you need to go and find a job. And in the end, I was like, oh God, I just need to go and find a job just to shut my dad up. So I contacted a temp agency, and they said, oh, we've got a temp admin role, 6 months role, and it's down at a local charity close to where I lived at the time, and it's in their HR department. I was like, yep, fine, sounds great. Went along, and basically HR had been part of the finance department, which historically it used to be a lot, and they just separated the two functions and brought in a HR manager to set up the HR function. And I was brought in to help her. And this was like back in the day when it was called personnel for a start, and everything was paper based. So all the personnel files were in filing cabinets. They were actual paper files. And we had to go through and make sure everyone had a file, make sure it had all the information in it, and then make sure everyone had a contract and create an employee handbook. And I went there for a 6-month contract. I ended up staying there for 8 years. And by the time I left, I was their HR manager. And I left because I went on maternity leave. And when I went on maternity leave, I had somebody come in to cover my role. And they spent the whole time trying to take my role from me, which was obviously an awful experience when you're on maternity leave, and a role that I had, been in and grown and dedicated 8 years to. It really did sort of overshadow my maternity leave. And to the point where I was then contacted by my my line manager whilst on maternity leave, close to when I was due to come back for an off-site meeting, which if you work in HR or most businesses, you know what that means. So I was met off-site and offered a settlement agreement to leave because they decided they wanted my maternity cover to be the permanent replacement for me. And it was just a really, really awful experience that massively knocked my confidence. And so I then went and found a role. And at this time, part-time senior HR and HR manager roles just didn't exist. So I eventually did find a part-time HR manager role, but it meant my commute was really long. I went to this business again. It was a 6-month contract, and I was there in the end for 7 years. I stayed there and was in a senior HR role there. And it was when I was there that I decided that it was time to do something different. It was a great company to work for. And I'd gone in and I'd set up the HR function, and I'd given HR a seat at the leadership table, and I was on the senior management team. However, I didn't have the voice that I wanted in that company, because it was still very much that they would make business decisions that impacted the people and bring me in after the decision was made. During this time, I'd also done my CIPD and become qualified. And I did my management research report on the psychological contract between the employer and employee. And that just really sparked something in me. And hang on a minute, this should be a two-way thing. If, you're giving a role to somebody and they're giving you their time and skills and expertise, it should be more of a balance. It should be a relationship rather than seeing HR as a service that you sort of wheel out to hire and fire and clean up the mess. And I then started doing a bit of consultancy work just for friends and family. And I was like, I really like doing this consultancy work. I like being able to do HR differently in the way that I want to do it. And that was really when I thought, you know what? I want to do this. I want to do this. And I've never been massively ambitious or ever thought that I would end up being an entrepreneur or building a business. But it just sparked something in me that I could do this and do it a bit differently. I was very fortunate that the business that I worked for at the time came to me and recognized this and said, do you know what? We see that you want to do something differently. We don't want to lose you. So we'll support you in setting up your own consultancy. We'll be a client. You can use our office space. So it was all great. So, I then decided, right, I was going to do it. And then within a couple of months, I decided I was going to set up my business. I found out I was pregnant with my third child.
Yeah, of course.
That wasn't in the plan. I always say that was me and my husband went out for his birthday, and it was one cocktail too many. So, but then decided to sort of, do you know what, I can still do it. I think I can do both. I just need to pause. So I did a lot of work in the background of setting up the business whilst I was pregnant, had my third child. And then when he was 4 months old, I launched HR Star.
I hear all the time from hardworking and ambitious women who are finding it really hard to find and keep relationships with their busy schedule. And you've mentioned to me offline that you have an incredibly supportive husband who made it possible for you to pursue your passions. What do you think are the characteristics that high-performing women like yourself really need in a partner?